And even White Rock Lake has a goat man legend attached to it. So, but the idea that this creature could exist literally sort of 10 minutes drive from, where Kennedy was shot kind of beggars belief. But people see it. Yeah. But in a couple of the White Rock Lake reports, one of the witnesses in particular reported how this thing literally seemed to materialize, and I do mean literally materialize and then vanish. It wasn't a case, it just bounded off, etc. So, again, it's difficult to try and determine how we can reconcile a creature building something, yet in the same token vanishing in the flash of an eye. And, I mean, one of the theories that's been put forward is that these things, as you mentioned, could be interdimensional. They arrive through portals, etc., in these so-called window areas and then vanish as mysteriously as they've arrived. That may explain why occasionally we do get reports of very weird things in locations where you would never imagine something like this could hide out.
And, years ago, Nick, I would have said that theory was preposterous. I couldn't say that anymore. With scientists truly believing in more dimensions and the possibility of parallel universes, who's to say that these portholes aren't real, natural, and these creatures either stumble into them or they come through on purpose for whatever reason, and then they simply disappear the same way?
Well, I think the interesting thing about this, George, is that if you look at certain areas, not just in the US again, but all across the world, we have a lot of these places that have become known as window areas where, they seem to attract a whole range of weird phenomena. One classic example is Rendlesham Forest in England. Now, Rendlesham Forest is probably most well known to people who are interested in UFOs. It was the site of a famous UFO landing in December 1980.
The Rendlesham case.
Exactly. What a lot of people don't know about Rendlesham Forest is that back to about the 1600s, it was also allegedly the haunt of a weird, small, Bigfoot-type creature that became known as the shug monkey. Shug was an English derivative for the word demon, so like a demon monkey. And even today, we get a lot of reports of mystery big cats in the area. So, again, you have big cats, Bigfoot-type creatures, and today UFOs, all being seen in this one area of forest. And, again, I look at Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where the Mothman was seen, with Man in Black reports, UFO encounters, poltergeist-type reports. It does seem that there are certain places around the world which either periodically or permanently seem to attract not just one weird phenomenon, but a whole range of them. And, I think some of the theories that are being looked into with things like quantum physics to explain, further dimensions and how they might interact with ours. I think people are looking into that area may not necessarily realize that they might actually open some doors, no pun intended, into some of the things we're looking into, and perhaps these things do stumble by accident or deliberately into our realm of existence. And maybe even, we don't give these creatures enough credit in terms of existence. Maybe, traversing the dimensions to them is as easy as us jumping on a plane. Maybe they're not stupid, dumb, wild animals. Maybe they're, highly intelligent, cultivated creatures that just look wild and dumb, shall we say. People on the island noted, for example, the potential UFO connections. And, if you do UFO research or you look into the history of Puerto Rico and UFOs, there are countless stories of massive waves of UFO activity in and around the island. A number of people who I interviewed, actually this is on the first trip specifically, told me how ranchers I'm talking about now, their animals had been killed perhaps a night or 2 nights after unusual lights had been seen hovering over their properties. Now, one case in particular that springs to mind involved a classic so-called flying triangle type craft. These huge black triangle things that people have seen in recent years all around the world. One of the witnesses told me how he'd seen this thing literally come out of the oceans, his property backed onto the ocean, and he said he'd seen this huge black triangle raised out of the water, had no idea what it was. It was obviously no conventional aircraft, and it just shot away at high speed. And, that was the first strange thing that ever happened to him in his life, and I'm quite sure that he presumed it would be the last one as well. But 2 nights later, his farm animals were attacked. He woke the next morning to find several of them strewn around the property dead, puncture marks, bodies drained of blood, no idea what had happened. So, that was just one of several examples where witnesses had tied this weird creature with the UFO activity that was going on in the area. Other stories I got, a number of people were quite superstitious in the sense of feeling that it had paranormal origins and pointed to the fact that there was a lot of sort of black magic and voodoo on the island going on.
Like it was dimensional?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the theories that was put forward to me, and this actually came, interestingly enough, from one of the people in the Civil Defence Unit. He didn't necessarily buy into the theory himself, but he admitted he'd heard it on several occasions, was that the creature, I guess the best way to describe it, had been invoked in some sort of ancient rite and ritual and was literally summoned up from some other realm of existence into our world and was now sort of wildly running around Puerto Rico as a result of these people dabbling into paranormal and occult activity. There's no doubt there's a correlation in the sense that where the chupacabras has been reported, the UFOs have also been reported. I mentioned that one earlier with a ranger who'd seen this huge flying triangle, and then 2 nights later his animals were killed. Another classic example is when I went to Puerto Rico in 2005 and interviewed a farmer there, again, whose animals had been killed in the middle of the night, and he reported how a couple of days later, quite literally out of the blue, with no warning, 2 people turned up on his doorstep in suits, no less, in the middle of the blistering hot Puerto Rican jungle weather. One a man and a woman, Americans, who obviously some sort of officials, and came across like classic Men in Black and Woman in Black type characters, asking him all sorts of questions about the attack on his property, the animal deaths, what he recalled, what happened, did he see anything? And, he was completely perplexed as to why 2 U.S. government officials would take an interest in a strange series of animal deaths on his property. Now, there was no direct correlation with a UFO encounter, but there's no doubt from his description that he was talking about something that sounded very much like the definitive Men in Black that we know from UFO law and literature investigations. But, Britain, for a small country, it's actually smaller than the state of Texas, that's England, Wales and Scotland combined, has a rich history of everything from werewolves, Bigfoot, lake monsters. Everybody thinks of, Britain, Scotland, of the Loch Ness Monster, but
sure,
many of the smaller, countless Scottish lochs and lakes, they have their own lake monster legends, which seem very, very similar to the more famous one in Loch Ness. And certainly, I've investigated reports, and there are many on record of people, driving past the loch late at night, particularly decades ago in the 30s and 40s, and actually seeing one of these creatures lumbering across the road into the depths of the loch. Now, a lot of these reports don't necessarily sit well with many people in cryptozoology, because a lot of the British reports seem to have paranormal overtones to them, in the sense that a lot of these Bigfoot-type creatures have been reported in the vicinity of ancient stone circles similar to Stonehenge, or ancient burial mounds, or areas of prehistoric significance where ancient man, built hill forts and things like that. And, I think if these were simply normal, conventional creatures hiding from society, we would see them at random.
Sorry.